This is Ben Ryan from Agfa, and today what we're looking at is creating terrains inside of the Unreal Engine. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to be using 4.22, but I'll also have 4.26 over to talk about the differences in the UI. So here, this is 4.22. I'm going to go third person. I'm actually going to go with starter content, and yeah, just call this one terrain. Cool. And then go create. So while that's loading up, I'll just open up 4.26 here and everything. So as you can see, the difference, or the main difference, is that we don't have our buttons up here in 4.26. So if you are working with that version, just as a quick question for people who have already got Unreal open, who is working with 4.26? So to check that, all you need to do is go up here and go about, and you should see here 4.26. Can everyone just give a shot at that, just to be able to go up here? It's just to help about Unreal Editor, if you could just try and do that. Just while we're waiting for it to load, is anyone in the room using 4.26? Nope. Cool. All right. If that's the case, then you will see this sort of difference here. You've actually got to go to mode and go to landscape to access these different sort of modes and everything. So I'm actually going to go back a few steps in a minute, and I wonder if that's going to let me have two of them open at the same time. Hopefully it will. In either case, the general principle of this is, if we go new level, is that basically what we're creating is similar to what we did in Maya, where I have a subdivided plane that we can then sculpt up and down. So to do that, we just simply go here to landscape. It'll prompt us now, because there's no landscape in here, to create one. And here we're just sort of changing the sizes of it. So by default, yours will normally be at like 63. That's actually really quite large, which is good, but it might be a little bit hard to work with for your first time. So I'm actually going to turn that down to 15. We can then talk about how many sections are in there for each. I'm just going to keep that at 1. And the number of components is, yeah, we can just stretch things out like that if we need to. And again, if you're using 4.22, it'll be slightly different, and we'll look at that in just a second. But once we've done that, we then just go create. Now, we won't put a material in just yet. We'll talk about that in a second. I just want people to have a go at some of the sculpting tools and get used to doing that. So once you're in here, you'll now see, if you're using this version, all these things up here, where you've got smooth, flatten, ramp, erosion, hydro, noise, retopo, all of these different things that are in there. We're just going to start with the Sculpt tool, and all you're doing is left-clicking and dragging, and as you can see, we're just dragging this sort of terrain up in the world. Now, the reason we started with a third-person project is now, if we press play, we should be able to now run around this environment and see how big it is for the player. And that's a very important part about this, because from here, it might look really good, but from our player's perspective, it might not be great at all. So the way we can actually move that player start, because you'll see it's grayed out, is we just go back to our modes here, go to select, grab our player start from the outliner here, and just pull it out of the ground, just to make sure that it's out there. If I press F, you can see that capsule there is like simulating where the character is. So I just simply press play, and now I can run around. So this is just this first part of this video. I just want to get people started on that and making sure they know how to do that. I'm going to open up, and I'm now going to go through that exact same process with 4.22, which is the one I think most people in the room are using. So again, once you open this up, I'm actually going to go new level, start with default, because it just clears out everything else that's there. Going to click up here on this mountain icon. That's going to bring up this exact same thing that we saw in the other version. I'm going to change this 63 down to 15 to make it smaller and a bit more manageable, and then go create. Once that is created, instead of being up here on the top, the tools will actually be over here on this side. So it's the same thing, same tool, same general principle. We're just using just a different UI or user interface. So once that's finished building, you then just need to use this Sculpt tool. And once we've started getting some of our shapes there and people are quite confident with what they've got, then we'll start looking at how to use the paint tool to put textures on there. So we got here with Sculpt. We'll go with this sort of Sculpt tool here. And again, same thing, I'm just left clicking and dragging things up. If I hold down Shift, that will dig down. So if you need to use that, you can. And always press play every now and again, just to see, okay, how does this actually look from the player's point of view? How do I feel as the player? Do these mountains feel big enough? Are they too small? Can I scale them? Can I run up and down them? All those sorts of things. So if you just have a go just now, getting up to that point, we'll stop the recording here. We'll make sure everyone's up to that point, and then we'll start looking at the next point of using some of these other tools, and then also how to paint in some of those textures, okay? Cool.